Today we have Miss Aishwarya Prakash. She'll be speaking. She will be giving her talk today. She's a PhD scholar with us at Center for Development Studies, and the topic that she's going to talk, her research is on factors affecting farmers' perceptions towards producer companies. Evidence from case studies in Uttar Pradesh. Aishwarya, you'll get around 45 minutes, and after that it will be open to the floor. People can ask questions, and in between, when she's speaking, if someone has a query, maybe they can type it in the chat box. I can stop you, interrupt, and then I can share their questions with you. And after the talk, then they can ask it themselves, right? So you get around 45 minutes. Okay, now over to you, Aishwarya.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'll just start with my screen share and then we can begin with the presentation. I hope the screen is visible to everybody.
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. In case at any point the slides stop moving, please let me know. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you everyone. I'm Aishwarya. I'm a PhD scholar at the center, and today I'm presenting a study based out of my MPhil work. And the topic for the study today is factors affecting farmers' perceptions towards producer companies,
Right.
evidence from case studies in Uttar Pradesh. Uh, so, first of all, we're looking at the content for the presentation, and so just a second. Yeah, just a second. So we'll be looking at so today the presentation we'll start with an introduction, the introduction to producer companies, what they are and how they came into being and what is their need. Then we'll talk about the methodology of this study. Then we look into the background of the study. We'll see like the in what background the study is being carried out. Then we'll talk about the questions that the study is trying to explore. Then going ahead of that, we will talk of the role of promoting organizations in forming perceptions towards producer companies, the role of individual factors in forming perception towards producer companies, and then we'll end with a conclusion. So, starting, I want to give you an introduction of what producer companies are and how they came into being and what their importance is. So, as we are all aware, in the recent days as well, the farmer crisis has been the talk much among the talks, and the agrarian crisis in India has been a long persistent issue which has been troubling us all for a long time. And so the features of the Indian agriculture are such that 85% of the country's farmers, according to the 2015-16 agricultural census, operate on land holdings smaller than or about 2 hectares. And among these, 66% operate on land holdings smaller than 1 hectare. And these smallholders face a variety of issues, which include indebtedness, lack of bargaining power, etc. So, with regard to helping these smallholder farmers, much emphasis has been laid on ensuring their direct linkages to the market. So, by direct linkages, we mean removing of intermediaries and helping farmers sell directly to the consumers as far as possible. So, but there are a variety of issues that smallholders face indirectly linking to the market. Again, recently with the farmers' protest and everything, this was much in the news, and we were talking a lot about how it was difficult for small farmers to incorporate with big capital corporates because there would be a huge power asymmetry between them, and this would create spaces for exploitation. So, in view of this, to enable farmers to operate directly into the open market, it has been said that collectivizing them or forming their collectives is a solution. So, with regard to forming farmers' collectives, the role of farmer producer organizations has been much highlighted. So, now the question arises is what are farmer producer organizations? So, these are organizations that can take various forms, including that of trust, societies, cooperatives, and producer companies. Okay, so an organization is basically any collective of farmers, and it can take any legal form. It can take the legal form of a trust, of a society, of cooperatives, and we are all quite familiar with working of cooperatives and that of producer companies as well. And cooperatives have been the most popular form of producer collective in India. They have probably been one of the oldest forms of producer collectives. We all know of some very popular cooperatives, Amul being one of the biggest ones of them. But even then, the Indian reality has shown cooperatives to be prone to a lot of problems. These include problems of elite capture and free riding. That is, so to get over these problems, some steps are suggested, and one of the suggested steps is moving towards formation of farmer producer companies. So basically, a producer company, or when a producer company constitutes particularly only of farmers, it is called a farmer producer company. So it is like a hybrid between a cooperative and a private limited company. So the most important criterion for a company to be deemed a producer company is that all its shareholders should be primary producers. So basically, such a company is like any other private limited company, and a private limited company is limited by share, and it cannot do a public. So it cannot list a public IPO of its share. So it's a private limited company. So the minimum number of people who can be associated is 10. But in case of farmer producer companies or producer companies, there is no limit on maximum number of members. And basically, such a producer company is different from a private limited company in the way that only primary producers, that is people who are directly involved in the production of a thing, for example farmers or weavers, or for example people, craftsmen who are straight away involved in production of a particular craft, say for example banarsi sari weavers, or for example people making a pottery, people making pots. So basically the potters who are themselves directly making pots, that is the producers, only they can be members in this company. No intermediaries, no businessmen, no people who are buying from these people can be members. Only the people who are actually carrying out the production can be members in a producer company. And when a producer company particularly constitutes of farmers, it is called a farmer producer company. So this is how it is different from a private limited company. And but then it has all the benefits of a private limited company, that is it works under the structural framework of a company, and it follows all the legal requirements that are involved with the company. It has regular audits, so that way there are lesser chances of having any kind of frauds or any kind of misappropriation of funds or all of that. So it operates under a stringent legal framework. But unlike a private limited company, it carries the essence of a cooperative within it, because it retains the one person one vote principle. So regardless of however much share anybody might hold in this company, regardless of maybe someone has invested more money, someone has invested less money, someone has bought more shares, someone has bought less share, but everybody has equal voting rights. So this makes this keeps a cooperative spirit and a democratic spirit alive within these companies. So basically these producer companies are a like a hybrid between cooperatives and private limited companies, and bring together the good features of both. So these producer companies are being suggested as a step forward from cooperatives, and as they have been suggested as the new form of collectivization for primary producers and farmers. So in India, SFAC, that is Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium, which is a government agency that has been designated as a nodal agency for facilitating the promotion of farmer producer organizations. So like we talked before, farmer producer organization is an umbrella term which can constitute of cooperatives, PCs, trusts and everything together. So SFAC is the nodal agency for facilitating promotion of FPOs, which includes PCs within it. And as per data available on the SFAC website, all the FPOs listed in the state of UP hold the legal state of a producer company. So over here, we have come down to the topic of our study. Since we are particularly studying PCs in UP, it is important to note that all the FPOs in the state of UP hold the legal status of a PC. And hence, the term PO and PC can be used interchangeably in the context of UP. So this is important to note that every time in this presentation, whenever we're talking in the context of Uttar Pradesh, FPO and FPC means the same thing. But that does not mean the same thing in the context of all of India, but only in the context of Uttar Pradesh. So on the SFAC website, from where most of our data has been obtained, like we have depended on SFAC website as the database from which we have obtained the number of PCs and got the list of PCs and everything. So the SFAC website lists these PCs in three categories: as promoted by others, as promoted by NABARD, and as promoted by SFAC. So basically, the three categories are promoted by SFAC, promoted by NABARD, and promoted by entities other than SFAC and NABARD. For the purpose of this study, today we will be sticking to the first two categories, that is promoted by SFAC and promoted by NABARD. Now we're talking about the methodology of our case study. So for this study, the case study method was adopted, and actually chose three PCs operating in the region of Eastern Uttar Pradesh. As part of my MPhil work, I chose three PCs, one each from each category of promoter. But for today, what I'm presenting, I'll be sticking to only two PCs. That is, one each being promoted by SFAC and NABARD, and the PCs were chosen from the list of PCs operating in Uttar Pradesh obtained from the SFAC website. Then we shortlisted the PCs based on their dealing in vegetables and their being involved in both input supply and marketing of produce. So we wanted to look at PCs which are dealing in vegetables, because vegetables do not have an MSP associated with them, and the prices of vegetables are also very volatile. So keeping that in mind, we wanted to particularly look at PCs dealing with vegetables, because I believe this is a market area in which intervention is very important, because there is no base price set for vegetables, and the fluctuation in the prices is also very high. So keeping that in mind, and they are also very highly perishable products, so they need to be sold off as soon as they are harvested. So keeping that in mind, we wanted to study vegetables. So we took up PCs which were dealing in vegetables and which were also dealing in input supply and marketing. So not just that they were supplying inputs, that is, they were supplying pesticides and seeds to the farmers, but they were also involved in purchasing the finished product from the farmers and helping in the marketing of the produce. So we chose PCs operating in Eastern Uttar Pradesh. This is because Uttar Pradesh is a very big state, and the geography and the economy of the state varies very widely from in different regions. So we concentrated ourselves in Eastern Uttar Pradesh. So within those shortlisted PCs, each shortlisted PC from the NABARD promoted PCs category was individually contacted over the phone to obtain their latest turnover figures. And then the turnover figures for SFAC promoted PCs were obtained from the data available on the SFAC website. So for the NABARD PCs, it was not available, so we had to contact them over phone and get their turnover figures. For the SFAC PC, it was available, so we had that data on hand. Then we chose each piece, one PC from each category with the highest turnover, because we believe that turnover is an indicator of activity of the PC, and high turnover means that the PC is actually very active on the ground and is doing some kind of work. So that is why we chose such PCs, and we wanted to study how they were operating on the ground. Then we carried out detailed fieldwork for 2 months in 2019, around the months of August to October. And we interviewed all the stakeholders involved with the producer company. And we also visited the offices of the two PCs, and we conducted detailed interviews with the office bearers and the directors of the PC. Then we also met with the resource institution representatives and the producer organization promoting institution or POPI representatives. What RIs and POPIs are, we will discuss in detail later. We met up with their representatives for this study, and we had focus group discussions in the villages where these PCs were operating. Uh, uh, the shareholder producers were contacted using the snowball sampling method for the focus group discussions, because we did not really have the address of all the producer shareholders. Simply the villages were mentioned in the list that we could obtain. So we had to take help from individual shareholders to contact other shareholders. And later on, after the FGDs, we conducted detailed interviews with 20 members from each PC. And these 20 members were chosen from the pool of those who were participating in the focus group discussions. And these members were chosen by the method of purposive sampling. So our purpose was to make a representative sample of 20 members who would be able to give us a clear picture of all of the shareholders of the PC. So for example, if a PC had, say for example, if a PC had 60% female members and 40% male members, so we tried to maintain the same ratio in our in the detailed interviews of 20 members that we chose. So that way we use a purposive sampling to obtain this. Then a list of various resource institutions and producer organization promoting institutions was compiled from the data available on SFAC website, and further information concerning these RIs and POPIs was obtained from their official websites or from public databases. So I hope the methodology is clear now. Moving forward, as we discussed, the topic for the study is how what affects the perceptions that farmers form. So before we can talk about that, it's important to understand what do we mean by the phrase perception of the PC. So by this term, we mean that how an individual sees the PC and what is their understanding of it. And it's very important to understand that every individual can perceive the same thing very differently depending upon their life situations and their own lived experiences. Like, for example, people from the same village, people interacting with the same PC might view the PC differently. This is because people are not interacting with the PC in uh, very matlab they have very complex mechanisms of interaction with the PC. They're not interacting with the PC in only one way. At sometimes they are not just investors in the PC, but they are also buying from the PC. That is, they are buying inputs, they are buying pesticides, they are buying seeds, they are buying fertilizer from the PC, and they are also selling to the PC because the PCs are also involved in marketing. So they are selling their finished produce also to the PC. Sometimes they're even employed by the PC. So they are having multiple kind of relationships with the PC, and how they view the PC to a large extent depends upon what all kind of relationships they have with the PC, how all they are interacting with the PC, and it also sometimes depends upon their own personal life situations, which affect to a large extent their perceptions and how they view the world around them. So it's very much plausible that people coming different people interacting with the same producer company might view it in different ways. So we will take a detailed look at that in the later slides. So now that we have started with this, now we're going to talk about the promotion of FPOs by NABARD. So NABARD is a NABARD is National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, and it's a central government agency. And as of March 2020, it supported nearly 62% of the total FPOs existing in the country. Again, I want to remind over here, FPOs are different from FPCs. That is, FPCs come under FPOs, but FPO is an umbrella term and it will constitute of entities other than FPCs as well. On the NABARD website, the data related to only FPOs was available in the report published by NABARD. So we could not get actual numbers as to how much is the percentage of FPCs supported by NABARD. But then, of the total FPOs existing in India, 62% is supported by NABARD. And it promotes FPOs under two schemes: Producer Organization Development Fund and Producer Organization Development and Upliftment Corpus, that is PODF and Produce. So it uses these two funds to support PCs and POs. And at present, NABARD has impaneled 790 producer organization promoting institutions. So you must have heard the term POPI repeatedly in the presentation till now. So these are actually organizations that have been impaneled by NABARD to help in the promotion and capacity building of FPOs. Basically, these organizations provide hand-holding support to FPOs and to FPCs in the initial years of their conception. These organizations can be NGOs, government departments, bank branches, cooperative societies, basically any association which has some experience of working in this area of working in the area of upliftment and working in the area of promoting good agricultural practices. They are empaneled by NABARD to provide hand-holding support to these new organizations that they are creating on the ground. These new organizations, that is mostly PCs, producer companies that they are being created on the ground. NABARD appoints POPIs to provide hand-holding support to these PCs. Like we discussed on brand level, the responsibility of POPI can include cluster identification, business planning, etc. Now we are looking at promotion of FPOs by SFAC. So SFAC is another central government agency which is also involved in the promotion of FPOs, and it is the designated nodal agency for facilitating the promotion of FPOs. Uh, in recently in the 2019-20 budget, the union government announced the promotion of 10,000 additional FPOs over 5 years, and SFAC was again identified as a nodal agency for carrying out these promotion of FPOs. And SFAC also provides support to FPCs with the help of two schemes. So SFAC has two schemes running for providing support to particularly FPCs, and these schemes are Matching Equity Grant Fund Scheme and the Credit Guarantee Fund Scheme. So under the Matching Equity Grant Fund Scheme, SFAC provides grants of up to 20 lakh, matching the equity that has been generated by the company. So for example, if the company generates equity of 10 lakh, SFAC will match that equity and give them grants worth 10 lakh. Or if the PC is able to generate equity of 20 lakh, SFAC will give them 20 lakh extra grant. And so it matches the equity fund up to 20 lakh rupees. And this is to provide capital to the PCs for their initial running. And then the second is a credit guarantee fund scheme, under which SFAC provides up to rupees 1 crore of collateral free loan to these PCs. So now the thing is that to be able to be eligible for both of these schemes, it is important. Not all FPCs are eligible for these schemes. It is one of the there are multiple criterions that PCs need to meet. One of the most important criterions being that at least 33% or one third of the shareholders of the PCs should be coming from marginalized communities. Only then they can avail these schemes that are being given by SFAC. So like we talked about POPIs, so NABARD has impaneled POPIs, while SFAC has impaneled resource institutions or RIs. So resource institution, the term itself is very clear as to their work. Similarly, as RIs, they also provide financial support and sorry, they don't provide financial support. They provide technical support, and they provide hand-holding support to new PCs, to new organizations starting on the ground. They help them in the so, sorry, they help them to conceptualize their organizations, and they provide them hand-holding support, technical support in the beginning years. They help them with the registration process, with making business plans and making future plans, etc. And these RIs are provided financial support for promotion of FPOs. So basically, SFAC gives some kind of financial incentives to these resource institutions, which again, like in case of POPI, can be NGOs or can be non-profit organizations who have experience of working in the area of promoting activities for small and marginal farmers. So the SFAC provides some kind of financial incentives to these RIs to help them support the FPOs and FPCs. So now we shall, now that we have a basic understanding of the kind of promotion activity, the kind of activities and the kind of schemes that are being provided by NABARD and SFAC for promotion of FPOs, we shall try to see how working methods of SFAC and NABARD are contrasting with each other. So, the involvement of RI in the case of SFAC and the involvement of POPI in the case of NABARD strikes as a crucial factor, right? Because we see that they are impaneled by NABARD and SFAC for providing hand holding support to the PCs. So, it kind of becomes very interesting to see that like what kind of organizations are impaneled by both of them, because in the end they become the representatives of these promoting bodies which interact directly with the PCs. So we need to see what kind of organizations are being impaneled by both of these bodies, and if there's any difference in the kind of organizations that are being impaneled. So, so the following findings have been borrowed from the Azim Premji University report. It was published with regard to FPOs in 2020, and it's been published by Govil Neti and Rao, and we have borrowed their findings here. So what we see over here, according to what they have found, is that compared to, so we see the first column gives us the years, second column gives the number of POPIs impaneled by NABARD in particular years, and the third column gives the number of RIs impaneled by SFAC in particular years. So we see that number of POPIs impaneled by NABARD is much higher than the number of RIs impaneled by SFAC. But I mean, it's sometimes almost 8 to 10 times higher. So that is there. And then when we come to look at similar data for Uttar Pradesh, what we see is that there are a total of 321 FPOs in the state of Uttar Pradesh, all of which had the legal status of a PC. Of these, 107 PCs with 75 POPIs associated with them were promoted by NABARD, and 51 PCs with just 6 RIs associated with them had been promoted by SFAC. It's also important to note that even though SFAC has a total of 15 impaneled RIs in the state of UP, 9 of them are not associated with any FPOs operating in UP. So basically, only 6 are associated with existing PCs. The remaining 9 at present do not have any PCs associated with them, but even then they are listed in the list of impaneled RIs in Uttar Pradesh. So even over here, we see that number of POPIs impaneled in UP is much higher than the number of RIs impaneled in UP. On average, NABARD has 1.42 PCs for each POPI in Uttar Pradesh. So this means that for each POPI in Uttar Pradesh, NABARD has promoted only 1.42 PCs, while SFAC has 3.18 for each RI in the state. So even though SFAC has impaneled lesser number of RIs, it has more number of PCs per RI. So uh, this is in keeping with the national trends that show that as of 2018, there were on average 4.92 SFAC promoted FPOs for each RI, while there were only 0.97 NABARD promoted FPOs for each POPI. So, in the national level also, the number of PCs promoted by each POPI of NABARD is much, much lower than the number of PCs promoted by each POPI of SFAC. So, this is in keeping with the national trends, what is happening in Uttar Pradesh. Now, we are going to look at the nature of the working of the POPIs and RIs. So basically, what we see is that 58% of the POPIs are the organization that are enlisted by NABARD. Reminding again, so 58% of them operate in the same district as the PC which they support, and only 26% operate in another district. For 16%, we did not have data available. And again, when we see the level of operations, so 40% of them operate at the district level. So this means that they are actually small organizations operating only at the district level, and very few of them are larger organizations. Only 8% operate at national level, only 1% operate at international level. So 40% operate at district, 32 at state level. So that's a huge number. They are smaller organizations operating at a lower level. So they have closer interactions with the PC because, of course, they are in the same district at which they are promoting the PC. When we compare this to the RIs in Uttar Pradesh, what we see is that 29% of them are in the head offices, or 29% of them are in other districts, and for 71% of them this could not be determined. This is because out of the 15 RIs enlisted in UP, only 6 are actually promoting PCs at this point, and for all of those 6, their PCs, their head offices were in other districts. For the remaining 9, we could not determine that in future, whenever they promote a PC, would their head office be in the same district or not, even though this did seem quite improbable. And also, when we see the level of operation, 73% of these PCs were operating at the national level and 7% at the international level. So that's like a huge number, right? And so so when we compare this to the NABARD organizations, like you see over here, only 40% operating at district level, and over here, no PCs, no RIs are operating at a district level. Most of them are operating at national and international level. This means that they are much bigger organizations. So compared to the POPIs, RIs are usually bigger organizations. The ones impaneled by SFAC are usually bigger organizations, while ones impaneled by NABARD are usually smaller organizations. So now the question that arises is that why is this of consequence? It is believed that an organization operating at a higher level, say a national or state level, is expected to be more efficient. And such organizations gain experience by promoting companies in different parts of the country, and they utilize this learning to improve their methods. And they are also more cost effective since they promote more number of FPOs per organization, like we saw, right? Like in case of SFAC, which had like larger organizations which were mostly operating at national and international level, they were also promoting more number of FPOs per RI as compared to NABARD, which was smaller organizations, and they were promoting less number of POs per POPI. So of course the SFAC ones appear more cost effective as well. But what we want to explore with this study is that how do these differences play out on the ground. See, what we state over here is something that we believe, given the general trends, but we want to see how this plays out on the ground, and we want to see that do the NABARD empaneled POPIs, which are mostly organizations operating at a much smaller level, do they have any advantages over the SFAC empaneled RIs that are usually larger organizations? And we want to see that if methods of promotion adopted by promoting bodies affect the perceptions formed by producer members towards species. So, and we also want to see if individual factors related to producer shareholders, that is, their gender, the size of the land holding, their caste, how do they also affect the relationship and perceptions towards the PCs? So, to know that, we are now going to look at the cases that were chosen for our study. So, we begin with the NABARD promoted PC, which is called the Pragati Gram Fresh. So, Pragati Gram Fresh is a PC operating in the Prayagraj district. It is promoted by NABARD, and it has a Pragati Gram Udyog Sansthan or PGS associated with it as its POPI. We have a brief description of the services that are being offered by the PC. I will not be getting into the detail over here because I think we'll be running a bit short on time. Basically, the PC provides marketing services. It helps in selling of the produce for the farmers. It provides supply of agri inputs and training and imparting of skills. And it's important to note that the PC is involved in promoting organic farming in the area that it is operating, and it particularly provides marketing services mainly for vegetables. This will be of importance when we talk ahead. This is the marketing model for Pragati Gram Fresh. Again, I'm not stopping here due to lack of time. Uh, so now we come to the POPI associated with this company. The name of the POPI associated with this company is Pragati Gram Udyog Evam Samaj Kalyan Sansthan, that is PGS. So this POPI, which is associated with this PC, it's the Pragati Gram Udyog Samaj Kalyan Sansthan. It was established back in 1986, and it is an NPO, and it was established basically for intervention in social and social development of marginalized communities in rural areas. So initially, after its inception, this particular organization was involved with helping stone quarry workers. So there are a lot of stone quarries in areas near Prayagraj. So these were involved with helping the stone quarry workers in these areas, and they came across instances of bonded labor taking place in stone quarries. So they came in contact with NABARD at that time to help these bonded laborers, and since then they have maintained their contact with NABARD and have partnered with NABARD in a lot of development projects operating in the district of Prayagraj. So basically, the organization runs various programs for the benefit of the people in the area. It has a grain bank, and it also has annual festivals called the Jal Mahotsav, that is festival of water, and soil, Mati Mahotsav, that is festival for soil, for raising awareness with regard to clean water and clean soil and organic farming in the area. It has a very large goodwill among the people of the area, and that goodwill was later used for getting people together when it came to forming the company. So the NABARD people contacted this particular organization to become a POPI for a new PC in the district of Prayagraj, and they used their goodwill to convince farmers to come together in the form of a PC, right? And initially they had a 3-year agreement with NABARD, which was later extended to 5 years, and they are paid certain amounts of money at different stages in these 5 years for supporting the PC. So now when we come to look at the working of the POPI, so what is important over here is that we could sense a very close involvement of the POPI in the PC's working. In some occasions, the involvement extended to the point that it became almost impossible to differentiate between the POPI from the PC. So basically, the POPI, that is Pragati Gram Udyog Sansthan, was kind of, let's say, hired by NABARD to help in promotion of a PC, which is supposed to be a separate entity, that is Pragati Gram Fresh. So POPI was supposed to provide hand holding support and to provide help in formation of the PC. But then it became so closely involved with the PC that at the time when the study was being conducted, so many times it was almost impossible to differentiate between the company and this NGO. The five directors of the PC, two are employees of the NGO, and the remaining two are close relatives of the chairperson of this NGO. So basically, four out of the five directors of the PC have direct involvement with this NGO, which is supposed to provide only hand-holding support. So this leads to an almost complete hegemony of the POPI over the PC, even in the day-to-day management and decisions. So now that we have understood how this POPI was working, we will try to see how this would have affected the formation of perceptions among farmers. So the POPI, like most other NABARD impaneled POPIs in Uttar Pradesh, was an organization operating at the district level with its head office in the same district as the PC. So this particular POPI that we chose for our study was actually like a model case, because it was like the majority of the NABARD and 100 POPIs. It was operating in the same district and it had the head office also in the same district as the PC. Okay, so it was a small organization like most other NABARD and panel POPIs. But we see that due to the close involvement of the POPI, the PC had been unable to develop an independent identity of its own. And also, the POPI ended up treating the PC as any other venture being carried out by them for benefiting the farmers. So basically, since 1986, this POPI, which is an NGO, has been operating in the district of Prayagraj. They have before also carried out a lot of benevolent activities for helping out farmers. So they ended up treating the formation of this PC like any other activity that they would carry out. But this was not supposed to happen. Basically, they're supposed to only provide hand holding support, and the PC was supposed to be an independent organization. But that didn't translate on the ground. Two of the directors of the PC, like we mentioned, who were the most closely involved in the working of the PC's everyday happenings. They were actually on the payroll of the POPI. They even stated that their major source of income was coming from the salary they received from the POPI. So of course, this was a clear case of conflict of interest, because they would only be answerable to the POPI and the head of the POPI. They would not be answerable to the shareholders of the PC, because they were on the payroll of the POPI. So the shareholders could not directly question them, or they were not answerable to the shareholders as such. And the effects of this was very clearly visible when we look at how the farmers were perceiving the PC. So 35% of them, when in our when we had our interviews, it was revealed that 35% of them thought that the PC was owned by the board of directors, which in this case again, four out of the five of them were associated with the PC, sorry, POBI. So, and the remaining 35% also thought that the PC was owned by the POPI. So, we can kind of say that 70% of the people believed that the PC was owned by the POPI, which was the Pragati Gram Udyog Sansthan in this case. Only 5% of the farmers realized that they were actually true owners of the PC, and the PC was collectively owned by them. So for 70% of them, they believed that this was something which was being done by the uh, NGO, which was the Pragati Gramodyog Sansthan, and they were not able to differentiate between the NGO and the PC, and they did not have a sense of ownership towards the PC because they believed it was actually owned by the NGO. And this is actually a common phenomena, and Google, Neti, and Rao have also listed that this kind of thing happens when NGOs are involved with promotion of FPOs. So, in the Ministry of Agriculture document titled Policy and Process Guidelines for Farmer Producer Organizations, the dependency of the PC on the RI for day to day activities has been termed as an important indicator for assessing the institutional performance of a producer company. And they say that a high dependency is a very bad indicator. And in this case, what we see is that the dependency is almost 100%, because even the directors of the PC are actually employees of the POPI, which is supposed to provide only hand holding support. They ended up like completely almost taking over the PC. So yes, even though the PC does benefit from close hand holding support in the initial years, it is vital that the promoting institution, which in this case is NABARD, ensures that this support does not end up becoming a dependency. So moving on, we will now talk about the SFAC promoted PC, which is the Kashi Vishwanath Farmer Producer Company. So this producer company is actually operating in the district of Varanasi, and it is promoted by SFAC. What you see over here is the office of the PC, which is also an outlet for selling pesticides and uh, yeah, medicines, etc. So EDA Rural Systems is associated with it as an RI, and this particular PC has a very high number of female shareholders. Almost 60% of the shareholders of this PC are female, and most of the shareholders of this PC are associated with it through an FIG, that is farmer interest groups. So basically, farmers were first made into small interest groups. Group of 10 to 12 people formed one group first. They saved up some money, and then using that money they bought share in the PC. So again, this particular PC also offers marketing services. So it has an arhat. So an arhat is a local term which is used for basically a wholesale shop in the mandi. And this particular arhat of this PC is located in an unregulated mandi. So it is not in an APMC mandi, but they offer marketing services through that arhat. They also supply agri inputs. So they supply seeds, they supply pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers. So this particular picture over here, as we see in this shop is actually an outlet for selling these pesticides and fertilizers. And they also again try to promote organic farming, and most of the pesticides and fertilizers that they sell are organic in nature. They also provide some other services like they have a farm machinery bank through which they loan. So they have a tractor and they have thresher, they have other farm machinery which they loan out to their members for rent. And also, of course, most of the members associated with this PC were interested in the dividends that the PC would provide them over the money that they had saved up. So, the SFSC promoted PC was, like we discussed, Kashi Vishnu Pharma Producer Company, and the empaneled RI is called EDA Rural Systems. So, EDA Rural System was established in 1983, and it's actually an organization that operates at an international level. It's mostly involved with microfinance and micro enterprise sector, and it is an empaneled RI for SFAC. Sorry, yeah, it is an empaneled RI for SFAC in the states of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, and Sikkim. So basically, it's an empaneled RI for SFAC in multiple states. Uh, this is how basically the RI functioned in case of this particular company. So the EDA received work orders from SFAC, and then it started with the promotion of the PC following prescribed steps. This included mobilizing and convincing farmers, forming of farmer interest groups, uh, and then opening of saving accounts for these FIGs, and ultimately purchasing the PC shares by the FIG members. Like I explained before, most of the farmers associated with this PC did not join the PC in individual capacity. They actually first formed FIGs of their own in order to save up some money to be able to invest that money in the PC, and they joined the PC through the way of FIGs. So EDA helped with the formation of these FIGs, and then later on with incorporation of the FIG into the PC. Initially, they chose 10 people and convinced them to take up director position in the company. Uh, and then these people were asked to invest a bigger amount of money. And then, with the help of these people, they convinced other people also to join the PC. So, the EDA has been very closely involved in the company's registration process, and they provided guideline and support to the directors in the initial days after their establishment. Uh, but as it was their organization's policy, they gradually moved away, allowing the PC to work independently without depending on outside support. And the arrangement that EDA rural system had with SFAC only allowed a 3-year period within which the farmers had to be mobilized and the FPC had to be registered while also completing all the legal formalities. 2 of these 3 years were spent in mobilizing farmers and registering FIGs, while only 1 year was spent in, while remaining 1 year was spent in completing legal formalities. So the PC could not benefit in guidance because they had only 3 years in which they had to set up the PC. It was very less time actually, as was stated to us by one of the employees of the EDA who was associated with the promotion of this particular PC. According to him and his experiences on the ground, 3 years was a very little time. So now we see how this affected the formation of perceptions. So in case of SFAC promoted PC, the RI associated with the PC operated on the national level and it did not have any head office in the same district as the PC. So the PC appeared to be suffering due to the lack of support and guidance from the RI. Basically, and because of this lack of support and lack of an awareness program concerning the actual purpose of the PC, shareholders developed a very distorted perception towards the PC, and they did not demand any special assistance from the PC with regard to any things that any problems that they were facing. They were only concerned with return on capital that they had invested with the PC. This is visible when we look at this chart, and when we question the farmers as to why they joined the PC, a starking 95. So basically, this does not add up to 100 because they could state multiple reasons, but 95% of them stated that they joined the PC only in the hopes of earning dividends. So this shows that they had not joined the PC actually while realizing what all benefits they can receive from collectivization. They had simply joined it as a place for putting in their investments and earning some dividend. So these perceptions and expectations can be largely extended to the fact that the RI, which was EDA, it was given very limited time by SFAC to mobilize farmers, and hence it is essential that the promoting institution spend sufficient time at the stage where farmers are mobilized for joining the PC. I realize I am almost extending my time. I hope I can be given 5 more minutes. I'll try to wind up as soon as I can. Now we are looking at how individual factors affect the formation of perceptions. So basically, over here, what you see in this chart is the composition of various categories of farmers in my sample for the Pragati Gram Fresh company, and this particular sample is in keeping with the overall sample overall distribution of uh, farmers and the overall categorical distribution of farmers in the PC. So we have basically we have semi medium and medium farmers, small farmers and marginal farmers, and landless farmers. Most we did not have any large farmers associated with the PC. Most of the semi medium and medium farmers, and by the way, these categorizations are based on the census criteria. So semi medium and medium farmers constitute of so small farmers constitute of uh, greater than between 1 to 2 acres, marginal 1 to 2 hectares. Marginal farmers constitute of less than 1 hectare land, and landless are the ones with no land at all. So basically, most of the semi-medium and medium farmers were upper caste, while others were coming from OBC category farmers, and some of them were also Muslim. So in our discussions with these farmers in the FGDs, what we observed was that there were stark differences in the way the people coming from upper caste and the people coming with larger amounts of land, how they viewed the PC, and the people with a lesser amount of land, how they viewed the PC. So basically, with the upper caste farmers with larger land, it was seen that they had a very high sense of uh, belongingness towards the PC. They said things like, "We want the company to grow and prosper, and since it is our own and our future is associated with it." And they had a sense of belonging towards the PC, and most of them stated members of the BOD and POPI as the owners of the PC. But when we came to the farmers, the smaller farmers, and it is important to note that it was mainly these smaller farmers who were regularly interacting with the PC and who were regularly selling to the PC. Since they were vegetable farmers, most of them did not have any sense of belongingness to the PC. They even went on to state that they would be willing to sell to even other buyers if they were able to get better prices. They were only selling to the PC because it was easy for them to sell to the PC since they were purchasing things right from their doorstep. And again, most of them understood that they had paid the initial amount that they paid as shareholding. They did not understand that they had invested as share capital. They believed that they had paid it as subscription money to be able to sell to the company regularly. And in most cases, they were also not aware that they were entitled to any dividends. uh, we look so these charts show the stark differences between the farmers coming from different categories. What we see is that small, marginal, and semi-medium farmers, so of these 33% could fully recall the name of the company, while 67% could at least partially recall the name of the company. While in the case of the small and marginal landless farmers, almost 42% could not recall the name of the company at all. 100% of the larger farmers were fully aware of the activities being carried out by the PC, while only 25% of the small farmers were partially aware, 29 were fully aware, and 46 were not aware at all. Again, with regard to the bylaws of the PC, all of the larger farmers were aware of the bylaws of the PC, while only 75% of the small farmers were not aware of the bylaws of the PC at all. So what we see is that in comparison to the larger farmers, the struggle to meet the day-to-day needs and to ensure a steady flow of income was much more prominent for the smaller farmers, and hence they could not be involved on a regular level with the PCs. And this left them with much lesser time and mind space to invest in the PC. They did not have much to gain from increased involvement with the company, and hence did not want to spare time for it, which is quite understandable. Again, we look at the Kashi Vishnath FPC. I'm not going into much detail due to lack of time. Basically, over here also we had farmers of two different categories, larger farmers and smaller farmers, and we also had a category based on gender. So we had 40% male farmers in our sample and 60% female farmers. So again, over here what we see is that the small farmers who are majorly female showed little or no interest in learning about the company's everyday functioning. Only the large farmers regularly sold to the company's wholesale shop, uh, and they were the ones who were regularly involved with interacting with the company. Small farmers usually sold through roadside retail stalls, so they did not sell to the wholesale shop of the PC and were not very directly involved with the PC, and their sole concern was getting returns on the money that they had entrusted with the company in the form of share capital. Again, over here, we see similar trends as last PC. They are actually even worse in this case, because all of the large farmers could recall the name of the PC, while none of the small farmers could. 70% of the small farmers could not recall the name at all, and only 30% could recall it partially. No small farmers could recall the full name of the PC. Like something as basic as the name of the PC, they were not able to recall because they were not regularly interacting with it. Again, what we see is with regard to awareness of activities being carried out with the PC, larger farmers are all of them are fully aware, while smaller farmers 54% are not aware at all. And with regard to bylaws of the PC, also we see that the larger farmers are all fully aware, while smaller farmers are not aware at all. None of them are aware. So again, over here, the reasons for not being able to be involved are similar as was in the first case. And over here, we also have some revelations from discussions with the female farmers. And what we notice is that no outright discrimination existed within the PC. However, women still found it difficult to be active in the PC because there were restrictions on their movement, and so they could not attend the general body meetings. And also, since they were actually carrying out the farming activities over and above the care work and all the other housework that they were doing, they did not have the time required to be able to invest towards uh, getting closer interaction with the PCs. And also, even though they were the ones who were carrying out the actual production, the decisions with regard to where the purchase would be made or where the sale would be made was being taken by their husbands. So they lacked the actual agency with regard to decision making, which impacted the relationship with the PC. So yeah, we discussed these. So basically what we can conclude is that extra steps were needed to ensure equal and active participation of the women farmers in the PC. Now we just come to the conclusion of the study. What we can conclude with is that on average, both at the country and at the state level, there are fewer FPOs for each NABARD impaneled POPI than SFAC impaneled RI. And at the UP level, it was found that most NABARD impaneled POPIs are district or state level organizations, while SFAC impaneled RIs are larger organizations operating at a national or international level. The lower number of PCs per POPI and smaller operation levels allow closer interaction of NABARD promoted PCs with the supporting organization. This can lead to dependency, but also gives ample time for PC to develop in the initial years. While it was opposite in the case of SFAC, and the hand-holding support that was given was not sufficient and it was actually needed some more. So basically, the balance would be somewhere in between both of these, where ample hand-holding support is provided while still giving time for the PC to develop on its own independently. Also, with regard to individual factors related to farming perceptions, what we see is that uh, a myriad of factors ranging from farmers' social and economic position to their gender and primary relationship with the PC impacted how they perceive the PC. And it is important to note that farmers are not a homogeneous group and hence they should not be treated so. Class, caste, and gender differences have a role to play among them, like in any other group of people existing in the society. And hence, it is extremely crucial that these differences are acknowledged and steps are taken to ensure shareholder farmers coming from all such sections are treated equally within the PC. Thank you.
Thank you, Aishwarya. It was an interesting study. Now I open the floor to everyone, to the audience. If anybody has any question, any comment, you can please unmute yourself and speak up. Let let others think of some questions. Maybe I had a couple, so I can ask you some. So these farmers, they are all vegetable farmers, you said, right?
Yes, ma'am. They're not, yeah, most of them are vegetable farmers.
And
But the PCs that we studied, dealing with, most of them are dealing with marketing of vegetables only. Yes.
yeah, no, so what I was thinking was these farmers, is vegetable their main source of income, or is it that they produce something else and that is their main source of agricultural income?
So, ma'am, like we discussed in case of both the PCs, in the case
Hmm.
of the second PC, for most of them, vegetables was a source of income for them from farming. Although for most of them, farming itself was not the main source of income. Most of them had people employed in other, for example, a lot of them had people who were casual workers in the city or who were working in a self-employed sector as electricians, as auto drivers. So most of the men of the house were involved in activities like this, and the principal source of income for these households came from these other activities and not from farming. But yes, most of their farming income came from vegetables. In the case of the first PC, which was the one located in Prayagraj, in that case, most of the larger farmers who were upper caste, they were not involved very much into production of vegetables. Most of them were involved in grain production, and that is why they were not interacting very closely with the PC on a regular basis. The smaller farmers, the small marginal farmers, they were actually the ones who were involved in the production of vegetables and more regularly interacting with the PC.
Right, that's what I was thinking. How dependent are they on the marketing and sale of vegetables for their income? Because perceptions could be driven by that as well. Maybe like here in the second case for SFAC, you said that the major reason for them joining the FPC was earning dividends. I don't remember if you have that slide where what is the main reason for farmers to join the NABARD FPC?
Yeah,
Is,
ma'am, it was not exactly mentioned on a slide as such, but most of the farmers who joined the NABARD PC, that was basically so the POPI associated with NABARD, the Pragati Gramodyog Sansthan, they had been very active in the area for a long time. So most of the farmers had joined the PC on because the PGS asked them to. So basically, they joined based on the goodwill of the PGS, and they believed that it's another venture being carried out by the PGS, and hence they agreed to join the PC.
right. Right, because often collectivization is thought of as a solution to many problems, but but a basic requirement also maybe is. What did you find from your survey? Did farmers they want to form collectives, or it was forced upon on them? What was it?
So, ma'am, basically what I found was, particularly in the case of these two PCs, since they were promoted by central government agencies, that is NABARD and SFAC, this was actually a top-down form of collectivization, where the will to collectivize did not come from farmers themselves, but it was like agencies, government agencies, kind of put them into collectives and hoped that they would get benefits of collectivization. But what I could understand from my interactions with these farmers was that most of them were not even aware of what they are trying to achieve through this collectivization. And
Right.
it appeared more like these PCs were being created more to fulfill government numbers than for, carrying out actual change on the ground.
Right. 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 Anybody else? Anybody has a question? Wants to? Yes, sir. Professor Nagaraj sir has a question. Please.
Uh, this is Nagaraj speaking. Yeah, again, yeah, I think what you just now said, that they seem to be top down, seem to capture this well. But also the perceptions depend upon what happens on the ground. So, did you have a chance to actually visit and collect data on marketing? I mean, some idea about the production and marketing. Ultimately, that is that's what ultimately decides perceptions, right? So, did you have a chance to actually visit and say how much they produce, how much they market through this organization, and has this helped them in getting a better realization of price, uh, or uh, or whatever advantages they're expected from this? So that would, I suppose, if you have some information on that, I would think then that will probably help us to better understand uh, the perceptions which you describe in detail. That's my first thing. Secondly, again, purely methodologically, how did you choose these two, and why did you choose them? I mean, why you went all the way to Eastern Europe, sorry, Eastern UP, and did these two? I mean, there must be some reason for it. Is it just? I mean, at least if you give us some reason, uh, and also if you're comparing, I mean, why these two, and then any contrasting between the two would be helpful. Because idea of a case study is, the details should throw up some rich details which will help us to ask more questions. I mean, give us useful hypothesis. Yeah, I would like Aishwarya to answer this. Thank you.
Aishwarya, yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Uh, with regard to your first question, yes, as part of my MPhil study, I have looked into how these pieces have impacted the livelihood patterns of the people associated with them. Due to lack of time today, I could not go into detail over that. But yes, in case of the NABARD associated PC, uh, like I said, the smaller farmers who are more into production of vegetables are regularly selling to the PC, and the PC has on some level helped them get better prices, particularly for the organic vegetables that they produce. The PC is able to give them a 10% premium over going market rates, and for the other vegetables as well, the PC although pays them at the market rate itself, but it saves them the trouble of going to the marketplace, since it collects the produce directly from their homes. So they save on the transport cost and the effort of the transport. So it helps with that. And in the case of the second PC, again, uh, uh, the effects on livelihood were in a very, so basically the effects on livelihood in the case of second PC did not actually come because of the association with the PC, but because of association with the farmer interest groups. So like I stated in my presentation, in the case of the second, that is SFAC promoted PC, the farmers were actually first formed into farmer interest groups, and then these FIGs were made a part of the PC. So the farmers were benefiting a lot from association with FIGs, since they were saving up on money. So that was kind of helping them with that was kind of providing them as a backup for crisis situations. And I could, in the talks with the women farmers particularly, we could sense that like there was increase in confidence among them, because they believed that now they had a source to fall back upon. through that saving group. They were saving money every month, and some of the groups even had corpus of up to like 50,000 at the time when I was speaking to them, which was quite a big amount. And these groups were working very successfully. So the farmers were actually benefiting more from FIGs than from association with the PC as such. Even though the PC was carrying out some market related activities, it was not able to get them any premium over the going market rates. So in the case of the second PC, it was that. So yes, basically association with the PC was always benefiting the farmers in some way or the other, although these benefits were not always what would have been anticipated at the time of the formation of these PCs. And also, I do not think that every time these benefits justified the kind of investment that was put into formation of the PCs. Because I mean, of course, the benefits were there, but then the question that remains is that could these benefits have been achieved through some other way apart from such big level organizations. And then to answer your second question, the particular reason for choosing Uttar Pradesh was because I wanted to study vegetables. Because, like I stated, vegetables do not have an MSP, so they do not have actually a base price, and they have very high fluctuations in their prices. So, I was interested in studying if intervention of producer companies was actually helping vegetable farmers on any way. And Uttar Pradesh is actually one of the biggest producers of vegetables. So taking that into account, I wanted to study UP, and then it also has a high incidence of small and marginal farmers and acute poverty among farmers. Within that, Eastern Uttar Pradesh is again one of the more backward regions of the state, and so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to choose Eastern Uttar Pradesh for my study. These two PCs I chose on the basis of turnover. So basically, I shortlisted the PCs working in Eastern Uttar Pradesh and dealing in vegetables, and also which were involved in marketing of vegetables and not just input supply. So then I had a shortlist, and within that, I contacted the PCs and I obtained their turnover figures, and I chose the PCs with the highest turnover. The reason for choosing PCs with highest turnover was that
Fair enough. I
yeah,
understand.
that they were active on the ground basically. So that is why.
Fine, perfect. Fine. Thank you.
You did mention that they were also supporting the farmers in some marketing thing, like buying it from their home, from their doors, or farm plots or something like that. That is
Yes,
also a lot of
yes,
because
ma'am. That was
farmers
in the case of the first PC, the NABARD promoted PC.
and the second one was doing nothing
No, the second one had a wholesale shop in the.
in the
Basically,
market.
the second PC was more focused on getting returns to the farmers in the form of dividends, because that
Right.
was what was being expected from that PC. It felt a lot of pressure on that ground. So they were actually looking for more and more avenues to earn better profits so that they could give better dividends, which actually in the long run does not support the cause of the farmers, because such these pieces, of course, they need to be profitable to be able to function in the long run. But then if they become solely profit motivated, then it becomes a conflict of interest, because in the end it is the farmers only who are selling to the PC. So if the PC starts trying to earn profit from the farmers, yes, the profit does come back to the farmers in the end. But I mean, they have invested such little amounts in the form of share capital. They've invested something like rupees 500. So the dividends, however big they might be in percentage, they will still be very nominal in real terms. So the farmers will actually benefit more if they can actually get assistance in technical services, if they can get assistance in solving their farming related issues. Like a lot of farmers in the discussions mentioned many issues that they were facing. They were facing issues of storage of their produce. They were facing issues of cold storages. A lot of them were facing issues with regard to stray animals coming and eating away their produce. But none of them expressed any intention of seeking intervention from the PC in these regards. They were not, basically because they were not aware of what exactly these pieces are meant for, that they were not expecting any help from them in regard of issues that they were facing.
Anybody else?
Yeah, if I may,
Please, sir. Yes.
two comments. Hello. So,
Sure, sir. Yes, please, sir.
Yes.
yeah, I think I think it's very interesting study. I felt that the lot of the presentation went into describing the administrative part of the organizations, like starting with NABARD, I think the real meat, I mean, as I could understand, was at the ground level. I mean, may not be production per se, but it's basically supposed to help marketing and get access to inputs. I mean, that's the purpose of. So I think if the presentation as well as the paper or whatever being written based on this, if it focuses on what's happening at the ground, I think it would be a far richer, I think, paper or study. That would be my my feeling. Secondly, I think somewhere I think Aishwarya mentioned that it's essentially it's essentially a top-down effort. If I could understand, basically there are NGOs working at the district level or at taluk level, and they have various activities. After all, these NGOs have very diversified activities, and they found the FPOs or about that this farmers the PC. This is a new initiative of the government which has come. So they try to use it to implement it in their area to get try to get some additional whatever support for farmers. So this essentially it is not a cooperative in the sense that it is the farmers coming together and moving up to get assistance from the government, but it's basically intermediaries or NGOs, basically consisting of well-intentioned middle-class people. They operate in an area and they have seized the opportunity given by the government to set up these FPOs. That is my understanding. So if my understanding is correct, then maybe it can be written as basically an effort of the NGOs to spread their activities wider to cater to the farmers. And it is not so much the effort of the farmers themselves, because farmers themselves see they are as basically landowners or basically peasants. So that's my. So I think in terms of organization, FPOs do not exist independent of the NGOs under whose guidance these operate. That is my understanding of what's happening at the ground.
Yeah, and no, sir, yes. And also these people, intermediaries, they are given targets that the government wants to say, for example, the budget announcement is they want 10,000 FPOs. So basically, every district has their own target.
I see.
Yeah, so then it becomes all the more the bureaucrats there, they are supposed to form so many number of FPOs on paper. And then what happens to them is, because the story that the case studies that she has are the best performing FPOs.
Right.
So think about what would be the condition for, say, even for the poorer, like less efficient FPOs.
Right.
So,
yeah, but if these things are brought out in the in the paper, I think it will be a much rich study.
Yeah, I think Aishwarya, you could have spent less time on the organization rather and focused more on the second half of the PPT. But anyway, very interesting talk. Thank you. And anybody, any other comment?